Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Someone asked me recently, how on earth are you always so happy? And it made me pause because I said, well, I'm not always happy. You know, I have bad days just like everyone else. And they said, yeah, but you're so positive and you're so happy and you seem to always find a way to look at the good side of things. And I realized one of the lines in the introduction of this podcast is finding joy in the everyday and talking about how to do that. So I wanted to dive into that idea and kind of explore that concept. And I think one of the things I want to draw out specifically is the idea that life is not linear. And I think understanding and embracing that can do so much to help us find a way to stay grounded even on the bad days. So the key idea here is that people often confuse joy with constant happiness, right? They think, oh, you're always happy. It must be so nice. Nothing must ever go wrong in your life. And that's certainly not the case. Like, I have bad days just like everyone else, and things go wrong and things happen and things go unexpectedly. I have nights where I don't sleep well and I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could get back to bed. But the important thing is there is a way to find joy in exactly what is happening around you. And part of it is looking at the things in your life and realizing that we have so many blessings we take for granted typically. If you woke up this morning in a warm, dry place and you have access to fresh water, you're doing better than a lot of people in this world. And there's all those little minute things that we kind of take for granted we can look at. And that can also help. But I think one of the really cool things about life is that it's not linear. And so this episode isn't about like toxic positivity or pretending things don't hurt or pretending things don't go wrong. If you've listened to any other episodes or you know me at all, you know I will fully embrace the concept of how to find happiness when things go wrong and that life isn't always perfect. But, I'm not always happy, but I've learned how to stay hopeful. You know, because joy isn't necessarily the absence of hard days. I think it's the presence of finding meaning in all of those days, regardless of what's going on. You know, and if happiness were a constant requirement, I think most of us would feel like we were failing at life, right? And that's obviously not the case. You know, and there's this, I don't know if it's cultural or societal or just this kind of straight line myth, but it is definitely a myth that life should move in this smooth, predictable progression. You know, the culture script is kind of like we're born, we go to school, we find a job, we have a family, we retire, and then we're done. Like, that's it. You know, life's over. But sometimes it can feel really discouraging if life doesn't follow that quote-unquote predictable path. But I think there's so much to remember when we tell ourselves, oh, I thought I'd be so much further along by now and all that kind of stuff, to remind yourself to pause that you are not behind. You know, everything happens to different people and we kind of work through things at different paces and different speeds, and that's perfectly okay. So, you know, if you've ever felt lost, remember, you might not be lost. You're just not on a straight road. Sometimes we have twists and turns to navigate. We have to walk around corners and uphills and downhills, and that's all part of the beautiful journey. But it's all part of remembering and realizing that life is not one little linear straight line that we're going to just easily trod down and kind of meander down for the rest of our days. That's not how it works. You know, and I think and I had this thought, if life were linear, it might be efficient, but it would be so less meaningful. Think of all the things in your life that you have embraced. Think of all the times when things were going good and you're like, oh my God. And you've probably set yourself up and said, well, this can't last forever, or this seems too good to be true. And then guess what? It was. The bad thing happened. Things got worse. The universe came crashing down. But I think there have also been times if you think to your past, there have been times where you're like, oh man, things are terrible. I'm going to put my head down and keep right on going and see if I can get through this. And then guess what? You did get through it. Things did get better. You found an answer. You found a way through. You found a path through. You found a new job, a new relationship. You got rid of the toxic people in your life. You found a way back to happiness. You found that path back to being joyful and content. And so no matter where you are, whether you're on a high, a low, or a midpoint in your life, just remember there's going to be places and there's going to be hills and there's going to be valleys. But embracing the idea that change is the one constant you can always rely on can help you realize that as you walk through life and as you go through things, you can always count on the fact that you will have either a new challenge ahead to embrace or something new to celebrate that makes you happy and that has gone better than things have been going. You know, and like they always say, the only two things you can rely on are death and taxes. But the other things you can rely on are ups and downs, right? Those are guaranteed in life. You're going to have highs and lows. Those are guaranteed right up there with death and taxes. But they're much more important than death and taxes because they are what carves out our script and what carves out our journey in this life. And as we go through, no matter what season you're in, remember, every season will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And actually, I have an episode about that too, if you want to go back and find that one. But every season of your life will bring change, and every season of your life will bring good things, and it will also bring things that are challenging and a struggle. But the way we find joy is by remembering that that's what life is supposed to be. Lean into and embrace the fact that you're not doing it wrong just because something went wrong. That's what life is supposed to look like. It's going to ebb and flow, and it's going to have highs and lows, and we're going to have walks that are difficult and then walks that are easy and everything in between. You're not doing it wrong just because it's not this straight line of being born, finding a career, getting married, building a family, and then retiring. That's not how it should go. It's not how it should go at all. So embrace that, and remember the one thing you can count on in life is that something will always change, right? And nothing stays perfect forever. That's some people might say the unfortunate part. But nothing stays broken forever either. You know, the curveballs don't ruin the story. They are the story. Think of how boring your life would be if you had nothing to talk about that ever strayed from the plan. When we talk to the people in our lives, sometimes the best stories are the ones that are born from unpredictability and things going a little sideways. Nobody tells a really riveting story about getting up in the morning, pouring themselves a cup of coffee, and going to work and having everything go smoothly and then driving home and going to sleep later. I'm sure some people do, and some people might tell that story, and we listen very intently, and we do our best to smile like it's the best story in the world. But I said a little tongue-in-cheek, but that's not where the good stuff comes from. The good stuff is from when the dog grabs, 9 pieces of laundry and comes trotting out to the living room, and every time you take one away from her, she comes back with a different one, and then to be silly, you make her wear what she brought you. You put a sock on her, or you put a sweater on her, or whatever. Those are the fun stories, the things that make life interesting and make life beautiful and fun. It's not always just about telling, oh, this is the path I'm supposed to be on. Things went great today. Check off another day on the calendar. Let's hope tomorrow goes great too. That's not the good part of the story. That's not the juicy part, And even when it's curveballs and things are going not so great, I think everybody listening, myself included, can remember a time where we're like, well, it wasn't funny at the time because it was stressful or it was making us mad or whatever. But gosh, it's funny now. This has happened countless times in my life, dozens and dozens of times where in the moment it was frustrating and I was like, oh my God, I'm so angry. The jet ski story in California comes to mind with the dolphins and getting towed in by the harbor master because the jet ski died. It's a story for another time. But in that moment, I was so frustrated and nervous and angry and just not in a good place. But now it's a fantastic story to tell, and it makes me laugh so much. So I want to encourage you to remember not to fall into the danger of the dread. Oh, this won't last. This is going great, but it can't last forever. It's true that it can't last forever. But I don't want you to fall into that, that dreadful mindset. Remember that, yes, if it's going great, it probably can't last forever and ever. But sometimes, even if it changes, it still remains good. And it still remains positive and happy. And that's something really great to look forward to. And when things are going well, something challenging will eventually appear. That's very true. But when things feel heavy, something lighter is also coming. Even if you can't see it yet, when you're down in the depths, in the basement of your soul, and you're saying, oh, God, I just need to find a way to claw myself out of this bad mood or being this upset, better things are coming. And most often, and almost always, we can't see the good thing coming yet. But if we set our sights on what we want to pursue, and we focus our mindset and say, how could life be better? Well, it could be better if X, Y, and Z was true. And we set ourselves some targets to make X, Y, and Z true. And we march towards them, even if it's little by little and the progress is slow, we still are going to get there. And those lighter, better things are going to show up, right? Because good seasons in life teach us gratitude, and hard seasons in life teach us resilience. And both are really, really important. And both are what shape us as people and make us rugged individuals able to take on our worst day. I also think it's true and can be said that both joy and struggle carry wisdom if we let them. I think a lot of times we have all learned some really great lessons from the things in our life that didn't go exactly according to plan. And, joy can carry wisdom too. For sure. I think that it reminds us how happy we can be. It reminds us what it feels like to feel good and feel great. It reminds us how connected we can be to people. It reminds us sometimes that, there might be someone in this world who you love the sound of their voice so much, and you got to talk to them either in person or on the phone, and it made your entire week because you hadn't been able to do that in a long time. And then that teaches you, it reminds us how good it can feel to have that love for something like someone's voice or for a person in general, or it reminds us how happy we can be just after a simple conversation that otherwise seems, pretty normal. It was just a phone conversation, but gosh, it can light up our whole week or our whole month. And so that teaches us something. It reminds us about the joy in our life and reminds us the good things. And struggle can also do that. If we have a really tough day and things don't go right and hell comes to breakfast and we get a curveball after curveball after curveball all day long, work and the kids wake up late and we spill the coffee and there's traffic on the way to work and we don't get to the bus stop in time, like all the things go wrong, that also teaches us a lot and can carry a lot of wisdom if we let it. And I think when it comes to the seasons in our life, remember that if it's a bad season, remember this isn't forever. And that might feel comforting or that might feel confronting. Both are okay. If it makes you feel comfort, like, oh God, this isn't going to last forever, that's okay, that's good, because right now things are bad, it can't last forever, that's fantastic. But also, it can also let you feel, you know what, things are good right now, but I know this can't last forever, so I'm going to make sure I stay resilient and stay focused. So when the bad thing does show up, I am prepared to deal with it. I know how to walk through it. I know how to put my head down and get through it. And I don't end up just fumbling and stumbling on this bad day that it ends up lasting forever. And also remember, not every day is a good day, but there is goodness in every day. And if you have something bad happen in the day, something goes wrong, here comes the curveball, and you look back on it, a lot of times I think the curveball only lasts a very small portion of the day. We overlook a lot of the things that go well every day because we don't take the time to think about them. If you wake up and get yourself your cup of coffee in the morning and get ready for work and head off out the door and get to work on time, all those things are little small wins in your day, but we don't notice them if they go right because that's just our expectation. We only notice when things go wrong. But when we look back on it in hindsight, the things that go wrong are typically such a really small portion of our day. Hey, this was a terrible 30 minutes of my day. Had an awful meeting or had an awful interview or had an awful confrontation at work or had a really hard conversation with a friend of mine or gotten an argument with my spouse or gotten an argument with my kids or whatever it was. In the grand scheme of things, if it lasted 30 or 40 minutes, or even if it lasted an hour, that is one tiny hour of your 24-hour day. And it doesn't mean it's not significant. I'm not trying to be dismissive and say that, oh, your bad day doesn't matter. But try to frame it in the scope of your entire day. Yes, I had a meeting that took an hour, and it really wasn't great because, it had a terrible outcome, and my project got canceled at work. It made me feel really upset. It made me feel really sad. It made me question all the hard work I've been doing. But hey, you know what? The morning went great because X, Y, and Z happened. I got to work on time. The kids went to school happily. Everybody had breakfast. Nobody walked out the door without their shoes on. My car started when I turned the key. It had a full tank of gas. Like I have gainful employment that allows me to pay for the gas that has to be in the car and buy food for the family. Like all those little things add up. But like I said, we don't think about them unless they go wrong or unless they're missing. It's hard to focus on them when they're right there because we have this expectation that they're always supposed to go right, and we only focus on them if they go wrong. So I want to encourage you to focus on them when they do go right and use that to kind of contrast the bad portion of your day and put it into perspective, because perspective can be really, really important when it comes to things like bad days or rough moments throughout your day. And when it comes to a bad season, you say, okay, well, it's not just one bad day. It's been 10 bad days in a row, and I feel like I'm in the middle of this crazy blinding storm, and that might be the case. But remember, the middle of the storm is not the end of the story. The storm will end, and you'll come out the other side. Bad weather ends, bad days end, personal storms, emotional storms, things end, and we will get through them, and we will walk through them and come out the other side. And yes, it takes hard work, and yes, it takes focus, and yes, sometimes it just plain downright sucks because it's just miserable, awful day after miserable, awful day. I get that, and I understand that, and I'm compassionate about that. But the middle of that storm is not the end of your story. Please hear me when I say that. It's not the end of your story. It's time. There is time ahead of you that is going to bring you brighter and better days. And I think joy can come from recognizing the richness of the entire experience. What a blessing it is to say, hey, I have a roof over my head and fresh water and a reliable vehicle to get me where I need to be from point A to point B. My kids are healthy. I'm happy and things are okay. Like, that is such a blessing. But also, what a blessing it is I thought of this the other day. I spilled a cup of water first thing in the morning. I was trying to get to my office. Everybody else in the house was asleep. It was 4:30 in the morning. I knocked an entire 20-ounce cup of water over, and it spilled all over the kitchen floor. The glass didn't break, which was good. But I was on my hands and knees with a towel, and I'm like, I just don't have time for this morning. But then I kind of chuckled to myself as I was wiping up the floor. One of our cats, the littlest one, the kitten, came over, and she climbed up on my back and started, rubbing up against the side of my face. And I thought, what a blessing it is to be in a warm, cozy house and have this beautiful hardwood floor to mop up, and what a blessing it is to have fresh water that I can just take out of the tap or out of the little dispenser on the refrigerator whenever I want. What a blessing it is to be able to take this soaking wet towel, drop it in the washing machine, and just wash it without having to jump through hoops or go to a laundromat or find quarters to bring or make a special trip out. Like, all those little things, even amongst the frustration, there are blessings woven in the middle there that I think so often we just overlook. So I think joy can come from recognizing the richness of the entire experience, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And so that's kind of what makes life feel alive. And the other things that make life feel alive are firsts and lasts and beginnings and endings. Think of when you were a kid, your first kiss, your first dance, your first prom, your driver's license, your first solo overnight trip somewhere, with friends or at a camp or whatever. All those things, jobs we have started, jobs we have left behind, jobs we love, jobs we outgrew, relationships that form, relationships that deepen, and sometimes relationships that dissolve, and sometimes relationships that we walk away from and feel better about because we feel like they had been holding us back or it's made us a better person. In all those things is so much richness of the human experience and of the lives that we get to lead. I don't want to ever overlook those. I want to embrace those and really just breathe them all in for exactly what they are. And, if you've listened to interviews I know Willie Nelson has said it, and I think Judi Dench and some other wonderful older people in our world, they've talked about earning their wrinkles. And, people say, oh, you got a lot of wrinkles on your face. And they say, yeah, I've earned every one of them. Because, a meaningful life isn't tidy. It makes me think that it's textured. We have wrinkles and laugh lines and smile lines, and we have sunburns and, scars. And that's what makes life interesting. And that's what makes life have a good story about it. What makes us be able to say that we've had a rich and abundant life, and we've been able to lead a life that has brought about lots of change. And if we're doing it right, we can always find ways to set our sights on new targets that can make us feel better about things when things don't feel all that great. And it's really difficult sometimes to do. I acknowledge that for sure, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Every chapter in your life counts, even the ones you wouldn't reread. Think about that too. Like, we have chapters in our lives that open and we read them and they close. And some of them we're like, I'm never going back there. I have no interest. But that chapter of your life, even if you don't want to reread it and you never, ever want to walk through that again, it has shaped who you are for sure. And that can be tragedy. It can be happiness. It can be joy. It can be death. It can be ending of relationships. It can be a time where you were really down and didn't like the version of yourself that you were. And you don't have to reread them. You don't have to go back and relive them. You don't have to live your life so that situation gets recreated ever. But they still make you who you are, and they still make you the person that you've become. And you don't have to have a perfect life for it to be a beautiful one. My life is not perfect, that's for sure, but there's so many things in my life I am so thankful for, and the richness I have found in both big things in my life and little things has just become really, really great to kind of cling to and look forward to. So try to do that with your days in your life. And remember that even though things aren't always perfect, that doesn't mean life can't be beautiful. So I said before at the beginning of the episode, that joy, one of the ways we can find joy, I think, is by embracing the fact that life is not linear. It's found through that fact. It's not found despite life's not being linear. It's found through it. And I've talked before in other episodes, too, that joy is a practice. It's not necessarily a personality trait. Yes, I am a happy person and an outgoing person and a positive person, but the joy I pull out of every day is practiced. It's not something that just happens automatically. I go out and look for it. I look for things that make me smile. And also, I take the time to do the things that also make me smile. I sit in the morning with a cup of coffee and watch my bird feeder out the window. And if you guys know me at all, you know I'm a bird geek. And it brings me joy to watch them out there happily grazing at the bird feeder, and it makes me happy to fill it up for them and feed them, especially on days like today. The wind chill today is like 15 below zero, and it makes me happy to sit there. And I feel blessed to sit in my house with a hot cup of coffee next to a very, very warm, glowing wood stove. And also to watch out the window and watch the birds, and that makes me happy. So joy is twofold there. I feel joyful and I feel blessed for being able to sit there with a cup of coffee in a warm, cozy house. And also I derive a lot of joy and I pull a lot of joy out of watching nature and things outside, like watching my birds. So it's a two-sided coin that I win on both sides. I win no matter what the outcome is. And one of the things I want to add to that is that, so yes, I look for joy, but also please remember to allow space for sadness without losing hope. So we can be sad. Sadness is an emotion, right? And so I've said this before. When something happens, an event happens, we cannot help the way we feel. We get emotionally triggered, and we have feelings that just show up, and we have big feelings that happen, and that's okay. So allow yourself some space for sadness, but don't let it make you lose hope. Because hope will always be there in the end, right? And if we remember that things will get better, and remember that we can be sad now and not sad tomorrow, or we can be sad now but not be sad 2 or 3 days from now. Remind yourself of that. It's a passing season. It won't last forever. And let joy be quiet and ordinary and imperfect in your life. You don't have to have this perfectly set up scene to be joyful every day. Like I said, sitting watching the bird feeder makes me happy. 15 below zero and windy, and there's snow blowing around, so there's only a handful of birds, but it still makes me happy. The joy is quiet and imperfect in that moment, but it still exists, and it still makes me happy. I think one of the other things that people kind of ask me is, oh, well, you must love every single moment of your life. Your life must be so perfect. And I'm like, that's not true. Like, of course my life isn't perfect, but sometimes joy is just realizing that I've been through worse and I'm still here. Joy sometimes, even on the bad days, is remembering that, hey, you know what, I had a day like this once, but I lived through it, and I'm here to tell the tale, and I'm here to tell the story, and that's a good thing. So do your best to focus on those things, and remember that joy can be quiet. It doesn't need to be loud. Joy can be very loyal, even if it's not loud. And, as we close, I think if we learn to accept the rhythm of life, that can really open the door to everyday joy. And so I want to encourage you, don't fight the shape of your life. If you look at your life on a timeline, it shouldn't just be a straight line. It should go up and down and around. There might even be a couple loops and corners in there. And that's okay. And so reflect on where you are right now and don't pass any judgment on it. If it's good, if it's bad, if it's indifferent, if it's terrible, right? It's part of your life. And that matters. It matters in the grand scheme of things, and it matters that someday the story you're going to tell your grandkids or your great-grandkids is going to be about all those moments that things were good and also all those moments that things were bad and trying and terrible. That's what makes our lives our lives. It's what makes them rich and full. And listen, please remember, this is your reassurance to know you are not late, you are not broken, you are not failing. If you feel like you are not where you're supposed to be, remember that your journey is not a straight line. You're going to go all over the map living, literally and figuratively, living this beautiful thing we call life. So embrace that and love it and learn to ride the waves instead of resisting them. You know, joy, the waves and the bumps are going to show up regardless, so it's kind of pointless to try to say, oh, I'm going to just resist them. It's never going to happen. Bad days are never going to happen. That's not realistic, you know. So if you learn to ride those waves instead of resist them, I think joy can show up a lot more often than we expect it to. As always, my friends, I hope this episode made you smile. I hope it made you feel good. I appreciate you listening very, very much. If you would like to pass this along to someone else who you might think would like the episode, please do that. If you'd also like to follow me on social media, you can do that as well. I am on Instagram and TikTok as Todd W. Hiller. You can find me in both those places. You can also jump to my website, which is toddwhiller.com. And if you need me for speaking, if you need me for coaching, if you need me just to listen to these podcast episodes and help things feel a little bit better, I'm here for all those things as well. Be well today, my friends, wherever you are in this world. Have a fantastic rest of your day, evening, or night, and thanks so much for being here. Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.